When he was bottle feeding, Ollie would want to hold onto your fingers. And so he'd put his tiny little paws on your fingers while he sucked away on the bottle. And his little tail would almost wag, like it was like a puppy dog. He very quickly had us all wrapped around his little paw. We got a call about an abandoned little otter cub. He was a bit away from their normal sort of territory. So we're guessing he was washed away during a storm or something like that and lost their mum. And he was so weak, so he was absolutely frozen, and we sort of bundled him up on to try and warm him up. We had to get the special tiny little bottles that you'd use for like feeding a kitten, and we had to feed him like day and night. When Ollie was orphaned, he was really lonely. He wanted to sort of cuddle up with us, but we were trying to avoid humanizing him. For them to have the best success once they're released, you don't want them to be friendly and coming up to people. So he took all of our self-control to sort of not want to give him cuddles. And so we had this toy otter that we called Otto. And Otto became his companion. He did snuggle up to it and he used to sleep with it. We started to introduce Ollie to the water when he was about 12 weeks old. First of all, we just kind of plonked him in the water because, like throw them in the deep end and see how they go. His initial reaction was, get me out of here, I don't like this one bit. And so we sort of kept encouraging him gently. He started to sort of stick his face under and realise that he could hold his breath and he could see under the water. And then he was just kind of floating and sort of flopping from side to side. Rolling around. Finally you just saw this light bulb moment where he was like, oh, I'm born for this. It was the cutest. Watching him just sort of discover that he was designed for this life of water. After we'd had him for a few weeks, another little otter cub was rescued. Lulu was another little orphan. Once she was sort of given the all clear that she was healthy, we were actually able to pair them together. When we first introduced them, there was a bit of sort of scrapping going on, they sort of weren't too sure which one was the top dog. Lulu was like, oh, look, a friend, how exciting. And she just started to sort of follow him around and he was sort of squawking and squeaking and shouting at her. But after about 5 minutes, the two of them were snuggled up underneath this blanket and they were sticking their heads out looking at us. And it was just from that moment on, they were the best of friends. As they got bigger, we had to progress them from bigger enclosure to bigger enclosures. Whilst they were in there, it was amazing to watch how wary they became of humans, which was that's the desire. They're ready to go, they're nice and wild. And so we organised to release them. And that was it. We sort of thought, well, that's the end of it. He's moved on and he's living his life out in the wild. It was about a year later, we saw on Facebook some pictures pop up of this otter in this lake. And I was like, he looks super familiar. I think it is Ollie. And we started to compare the pictures, the markings on their kind of neck and chest. And yep, it was him. He's out there and living the good life.
Like, comment, and subscribe.